Thank you, Paul. And hopefully everyone can hear me and see me.
Loud and clear and clear.
Very good, thank you. So, hello and huge thanks first off to the Scottish Institute for allowing me to speak today, and my committee chair, Brian Griffiths, is with us as well. So it's a great opportunity to talk to you about our work. So I'm Sarah Kelly. I'm a lead standards development manager at BSI. I work in our committees area, so developing standards with industry and academic and other experts, both at the national level for UK standards, European and also international standards. So just going to give you a little talk today, quite a lot of slides, but hopefully they won't be too overwhelming, and take you through the sort of work and documents we work on as well. So a little summary of what I'll be talking about. So a little bit about BSI. So that's the British Standards Institution and its role as the UK's national standards body. A little bit about what we actually do and our standards making activities, and then focusing in on maybe the information that you'd be most interested in. So our committee TPR 17, and I'll explain what that unusual little number and designation means, and the work it does on standards in remanufacturing. So just starting off with some general information about BSI and the British Standards Institution. So I work within the sort of national standards body side of BSI. That's sort of highlighted there. We work on standards and all sorts of other deliverables, and it says there information solutions, so other digital products and anything related to standards. The BSI group has other commercial activities around assessment, certification, compliance, training, advisory, consultancy services, but my talk is going to focus on what we do as the standards body, so very much around the standards making activities. So we're a Royal Charter company, and what that means is we're independent. None of our profits are distributed, they're fed back into the business, and governance is assured by a strong board of directors. So it's a really good status for us to have as the national standards body. And just a little summary then. We would like to consider ourselves as the world's first national standards body, founded in 1901, and we were also one of the founding members of the international standards organisations, ISO and IEC. A little bit more on that later. As I said, we're a Royal Charter company, so not for distributed profit, independent and impartial, and through the work we do with our group, globally recognised. So some of you might recognise the Kite Mark, one of our assurance and quality marks, and it has a lot of success, and it's well known, particularly in the UK, but also internationally. So just to sum that up, we're experienced, we've been around since 1901, trusted. The Royal Charter company means we reinvest our profits back into the business. Specialists, so out of the standards business, we've moved into training, certification, supply chain solutions, all of those things through our role as the national standards body. And then reputable, so we'd like to think of ourselves as thought leaders. We've shaped some of the world's leading standards, and I'll let you see a few of those. So from back in the day when we started back in 1901, from tram tracks right the way through to all sorts of other activities, bringing us right the way up to the Internet of Things and everything in between. So there are standards for T, for information security, connected and autonomous vehicles, very new work programs, also robot ethics and artificial intelligence, very new areas of work, and smart cities. And in all, over 59,000 areas of best practice. So there's a lot going on. And just to take you back again, so innovation is something we've always focused on. From back in 1901, with the tram track gauges, quite a tricky one to say, right the way through to today's smart cities and sustainability and all of those really good standards that we'll touch on. So we've shaped nearly 40,000 standards since 1901. So there's a lot of documents, a lot of good work has gone on. We engage with over 12,000 experts, be they from academia, governments, industries, and that's across the world. So globally, to create standards for whatever sector needs them. And as we like to say, created by industry and for industry. So we help to bring everyone together to do that. So we've been involved in a lot of work and have led a lot of international work and taking some of our key national standards into the international arena. So one of the world's, or the world's best used, most well-known standard is probably ISO 9001. And that started life as a British standard. So it was originally, I think, MOD document, and that became BS, so British Standard 5750. And the UK and BSI have taken that successfully to ISO, and that's now used across the world, ISO 9001. The same for the environmental management area. So that started life as BS 7750, and that's now the very well established and well used ISO 14001. But lots of other areas as well, occupational health and safety, a very recent but big change in that in 2018, one of the BS 18001 became ISO 45001, a very big change for the health and safety area. Information security, business continuity, and all sorts of other documents that have started life in the UK as a national standard, and we've been able to take them to ISO, to the highest level of the standards world. And there's a reminder about the kite mark again. So just a little slide on the differences that standards have made to the world, and just really recapping on all of the work we've been doing since way back when in 1901. So we started out with product specifications, so very much the technical standards, the kind of bread and butter, the traditional standard you would expect for a product, be it, as we said, the tram gauges, be it plugs and sockets, whatever you can think of. They're back in the day, and we still do those. They're still very much part of the work we do and the portfolio. But building on that, sort of starting in the 1950s, we moved to business process, and so standards supporting management systems, and they started to come on board from the 1950s. Apologies if you can hear any noise. I think one of my neighbours has started cutting their hedge. And finally then, taking us through to where we are today, business potential standards. So standards that are focused more on what an organisation can do to fulfil its full potential, principles and frameworks. So I touched on the fact that BSI is the UK's national standards body, and what that means is we represent the UK at the international level, so in the ISO and IEC space, and they are the international standards organisations that we founded, we helped to found back in 1947. And we also represent the UK in the European standards bodies, so CEN and CENELEC. And there's that little distinction in the standards world between the electrotechnical area, so IEC at international level, and CENELEC at the European level. And then everything else falls under the banner of ISO internationally and CEN European-wise. And BSI, as the UK's national standards body, is given this role by the UK government. So we have a memorandum of understanding, and the main government department that we feed into will be BASE, and that's an ongoing arrangement. So we're given that role to represent the UK in those organisations, to represent the UK in the international and European organisations. So a little bit now about our activities. So standards making and what that actually means. So I've just put up a little slide Just to give you a little example of, to remind you of what standards are, because often people say, well, what are they? What are you doing? So if you think about how goods used to be transported back in the day, you can see in the top corner, you have crates of all different shapes and sizes, barrels, all sorts of boxes. And then the whole sort of shipping area was standardized, and you have the shipping container, the same size, so you know exactly how many of those containers you can fit onto a vessel, onto a ship. And it just means that transport and trade is just so much easier. So a very broad definition of standards, an agreed way of doing something. And as I mentioned before, we would bring the people together, and that's standards are made for people and by people. So just agreements around what is perceived to be best practice, what is the best approach in any particular area. And that's across the board from sector to sector. So as we saw, we cover all sorts of different areas, manufacturing, engineering, through the softer business type processes, and just about everything really. Okay, so in terms of standards and other deliverables, we can offer a whole range and a suite of documents. So this pyramid, standards pyramid, is a really good way of showing the different types of documents we can help you with, but also the different levels of both consensus and involvement in the standards world. So starting at the bottom, you have sort of more private standards, maybe where an individual company or a small group of companies would like to start to develop some best practice or guidance, maybe professional codes, and BSI can help with that. And moving up then through maybe some corporate specifications, maybe a small group of companies come together, and maybe in new areas they want to start their standards journey, and heading off all that other private or consortia standards. And then when we move into the red part of the pyramid, we're starting to get a little bit more formal. So we have a BSI PAS, which is a sponsored standard, where a small group of companies, maybe innovators or early adopters of a new technology, decide to come together and they want to get something out quite quickly. And that's really what the PAS process is about. And we actually have launched an even faster route to market, our new Flex standards approach. So again, quite small, but starting to build as you move up the pyramid. And a PAS allows us to get some experience of, get a document out to market, get a document out to industry, allow them to use it. We would get some feedback on that, and then maybe its next step is to become a national standard, so a BS. And moving up through the pyramid, that then allows you to bring in more stakeholders. A formal British standard would involve all of the people that need to be involved. They all sit around the table. They all help us shape what is best practice in any particular area. And then once you've got good experience with a national standard, you might think that it can go further, and the next step up might be a regional standard. So for us in the UK, into CEN, into the European standards body, and they're known as regional standards, or maybe you go straight to the top and an international standard. So a lot of multinationals, a lot of the big corporations, big groups, an international standard is where you really want to be. So those standards can be used across the world, throughout your supply chains, all the different countries, all the different companies that you're involved with. And that's sort of the top of the pile. So that sort of gives you a little idea of the different types of documents that we deal with. What we say about this is, as from the bottom of the pyramid, you obviously have more control over the document, because it might just be you and one other company, or it might be you and your chain of companies. And as you move up, then you're involving more people. So it gains status in terms of worldwide use, but you kind of lose a little bit more control of the document. But the important thing is that it's as you move up, you're becoming an international standard, and that's surely where a lot of people would want to be. So this slide isn't particularly clear, but I'll just give you a very quick talk through it. It just explains how standards are actually made. So sometimes they're perceived to be quite long in their development, but all of the standards bodies, both at national, European and international level, are trying to make sure that we can get documents out more quickly. But the process is the same. You can just accelerate the different stages. So you need an idea, or you need a proposal, a new work item, a suggestion that a standard needs to be revised. That's presented to the relevant organisation. They assess it, and if it's good to go, it's taken onto the work programme. A particular committee generally is responsible for the work. They get a group of experts together. They work on the document. They work on the draft. Refine it, make sure it's in accordance with all of the rules. Obviously, we also have standards for standards, so we're governed by a lot of our own standards as well. Once the draft is ready, we then release it for public comment, and that's a really important part of the standards development process, particularly for the formal standards. So any standard that's a national standard, BS, British standard, but also European standards and international standards, we at BSI release those for public comment. So they go up on our website, and anyone, absolutely anyone, can register to that site, and you can put your comments. Any feedback, anything you feel is good, bad, or indifferent, but the public comment aspect is one of the key factors of the formal standardization area. So once that kind of public consultation has finished, we gather all the comments, and the relevant experts review them and incorporate any that need to be into the document. It gets committee approval and it's published. But it doesn't stop there. Obviously, that's a very big stage, a big part of the process. But we need to make sure that these standards are still viable, are still the best that they can be. And so every standard is reviewed, and as a minimum they're reviewed every 5 years. So the relevant committee, if they haven't done any work on them beforehand, they can of course choose to update or amend them whenever they think is necessary, but as a minimum every 5 years the committee will review them and either confirm them as good to go for another 5 or however many years, or maybe they decide they need to be adjusted, they need to be amended, and that's when the whole process starts again. So hopefully in the slides, when they're circulated, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. But it's just to give you an idea of the flow of the process and what we do on a day-to-day basis. So again, just a few little stats and a picture of our lovely building in Chiswick, West London. Unfortunately, I'm working from home these days, so I haven't been in there for a long time now. But that's where we would hold any face-to-face meetings for our committees, where our office staff are based, events, conferences, all of those things, when the conditions allow. Hopefully that we'll be able to do that again. But what goes on in terms of BSI is, in numbers, we have, as mentioned before, around 12,000 committee members, around 1,200 technical and subcommittees. That's probably higher because obviously with new areas, we're getting new committees set up all the time, really. There's usually around 7,000 projects on the go at any one time, and that's standards projects, be they new standards, revisions of existing standards, amendments to existing standards, all sorts of work. There are currently around 40,000 in our collection. And then we tend to publish just under 3,000 every year. And that could be amendments. That's not brand new standards. It might be a revision of an existing standard as well. So I've mentioned the word committees a lot, and the committees are at the heart of everything that we do. So at BSI, we have an overarching policy and strategy committee, and they make sure that everything is done in accordance with our rules and regulations. They also help our policy team and steer them in terms of what the national standards body should be doing and where we should be going, help to direct the work that we do. But each of our work programs are given to a specific committee, a technical committee, and they have a whole range of work and items to look at. They might subdivide their area, if they're particularly big, into subcommittees, and they then take a particular chunk of the work. And then you can go down to where the work really goes on, so the drafting work or the discussion on the individual standards at working group or panel level. And that's just an idea of the different structures that we have. And then who sits on the committees? Well, I've mentioned that we bring all the people together that need to be involved. And on a regular committee, we would have industry experts, we might have academic organisations, research bodies, standards users, some of the professional institutions, consumer bodies, trade associations, certification bodies, government departments maybe, enforcement bodies. So a very wide range of organisations. Essentially, whoever needs to be involved can get involved. Each committee has a secretary or committee manager, and that's my role on the committees I work with, and a committee chair, so the person that helps steer the work and works very closely with the secretary to help the committee through all of the different roles that it has. So specifically today, I wanted to give you a bit more information on the committee that myself and Brian Griffiths, my committee chair, who we work with, what it's all about, and what we do, and how that ties in with remanufacturing. So, getting onto the names. So, standards committees tend to, in the UK, national committees tend to have a three-letter designation, and the committee area we sit under is TPR1. So, technical product realisation, and all of these words here cover a massive amount of work, be it technical drawings, engineering drawings, 3D modelling, verification, and design. And so I like to kind of sum up this committee area as looking at design, specification, and verification. So it grew out of a very strong mechanical engineering area. It had a whole load of other names, but which you could trace back to technical drawings. We mirror to international committees, so that means we send experts to these to international committees. So ISO TC10, one of the longest standing ISO committees, technical product documentation. It was formed right at the very start of ISO, so back in 1947. And then a slightly younger committee, ISO TC213, and they look after dimensional and geometrical product specifications and verification. Quite a long name. And interestingly, the UK now runs both ISO TC213, so the international committee, and I'm committee manager for that international group. And we also run one of the subcommittees in ISO TC10. So that's great in terms of our leadership for the UK, and it helps with all of the work that we're doing. So just a couple of slides to show you where the committee came from. So for any of you who know engineering drawing, then BS 308 is where it came from. But we've moved on from there now. So any of you engineering designers, design engineers, might know the standard that replaced BS 308 is BS 8888, and that very much brings together all of the drawings, all the specification, and moving into 3D and CAD. But the area that you'll be more interested in is the one above it on the slide, which is BS 8887, and that's designed for manufacture, assembly, disassembly, and end-of-life processing. So the MADE committee, and I'll just give you a little bit more information on that. So I've highlighted there TPR17, so that's where the lovely name comes from. So we sit under TPR1, we're subcommittee 7, and we look after BS 8887, Design for MADE. So what does that mean? So under the direction of our technical committee, we look after the AA7 series, and that is designed for manufacture, assembly, disassembly, and end of life. And most of the committee's work at the moment is focused on the D and the E, so disassembly and end of life, and in particular, sustainable product design related issues and remanufacture. And then the M and the A, where traditionally there have been a lot more standards already, we'll be looking into that in the future. But at the moment, we're very much focused on the disassembly and end of life side of our work program, and that's what's led us to remanufacture. So we have the AA7 Series, as I mentioned, and also a design management standard, BS7000 Part 2. So this is the full list. Some of them may be of interest to you or not, but they all feed in and they're all very much aimed at helping designers to include sustainable and sustainability principles at the start of the design process. So in these days of the circular economy, where design is recognised as a really important part of the whole move to becoming more circular, these standards help designers to think about these principles right at the start of the design process. And that ties back to our BS Part 1. That ties back into all of the TPR1 standards. So, you know, the tradition and heritage of coming from the engineering design area means that these are building on that really good heritage and tradition, but moving into the newer areas such as sustainability, circular economy, which is a really important issue and really important for remanufacture. So Part 220 is the process of remanufacture, and I'll give you some more information on that. So just looking at the committee and what we do. So we have 3 panels currently. Panel 1 looks after BS7000 Part 2. Panel 2 looks after one of our newest standards, AA7 Part 3. And really interestingly, and the latest panel that we've created, Panel 3, looks after Reman, product value retention. So we've a really good group of UK remanufacturers and designers and people interested in the world of Reman, including the Scottish Institute for Remanufacture. We're very grateful for all of the work they do with us, for sending experts to our meetings, for contributing to all of the projects and the work. So it's really invaluable, and a huge thanks again for all of that effort. So those are the 2 most recent documents that we worked on, our design management system standard and Part 3 of the AA7 series on design guidelines. But as well as all that, we do a lot of other activity, and in more normal circumstances, we would be hosting awareness raising events with academic members. So Brunel University, the University of Sussex have already hosted events for us, and we've had talks with South Bank University, Cardiff University and others, and Coventry University is another key player at the moment, Loughborough as well. So we're looking at maybe exploring the options for going online with those, and hopefully we can do something in that space very soon. So one thing to point out, I think, which is quite useful for this committee, not only do we have the national work, but we're also very active in the international and European arenas. So in terms of the international arena, we lead work in ISO TC10 Working Group 20. And so we've taken one part already of the national series, so BS 8887 Part 1. We've led the work to convert that to an international standard. And that's now BS ISO 8887 Part 1, and it was published in 2017. It looks slightly different from the original British standard, but great to get it into ISO and to have an international standard from that group. And we're now also working on the second part of that series, so the terminology document, and that's currently within the working group, and we've started the work. So it's on the work program, and we're now looking to make that an international standard as well. We also have a lot of contact with CENTIC 406, which is a European committee led by France, and they're looking at eco-design in the mechanical sector, and some interesting work there, and our experts are contributing to all of their meetings and projects that go on there. And at the bottom of the list, but absolutely by no means least, remanufacture. So I've mentioned that we have part 220 of our series, and that's something that we're always looking to promote and raise awareness of. I mentioned the panel, TPR 173, where we're bringing people together to discuss all things remanufacture and particularly any needs for standards in remanufacturing. And also we've got some joint work with China, which I'll tell you about. So just a little bit more on the international work. As I mentioned, part 1 and part 2 of the national series are going forward to ISO. Part 1 has been published. Part 2 hopefully is on its way. And the aim of that work is to increase awareness and understanding about the AA7 series. TC10 is very much engineering design based and mechanical engineering focused. So it's helping designers, engineering designers to think about all of these end of life issues right at the start of their projects. And that's just a little snapshot on part 2, which is the terms and definitions standard. Okay, so probably what you've all been waiting for. Part 220 of the AA7 series, the process of remanufacture. So it's a specification standard. It sets out the steps that a company can follow in remanufacturing, and it's a cross-sector document. It's not specific to any one sector. Anyone could use it. It was originally created with our automotive partners, so the SMMT, the UK's automotive trade body, but also other industry and academic representatives on the committee, so from across all different types of sectors. And it's worth highlighting that since that standard was published, we've had over 10 years of engagement and activities around remanufacturing. So we've seen a lot of growth over the years, a lot of activities, be it events like this, talking at conferences, whatever it takes. We've seen a lot of activity, and we're really encouraged with the amount of engagement and involvement we're getting in the work. And the UK standard has received a great deal of interest, both from within the UK, but also from other countries, and in particular China. So in terms of our committee and remanufacturing, we have a lot of key contacts. This isn't everyone, there are a lot more. Obviously, I've listed at the top the University of Strathclyde's Scottish Institute for Remanufacture. So Winnie Ajoma, who you might have heard talking on Monday's seminar, she's sat on our committee for a long time and feeds in issues that members of the Scottish Institute want us to look at and raise, which is great. Oak Dean Hollands run the Centre for Remanufacturing and Reuse in England, and they also have strong links and set up and run the European Remanufacturing Council, and a few of their key experts sit on our committee, so David Fitzsimons, Owen Griffiths and Rachel Wall. Brighton University has been a key player with us, and they have links to China's key laboratory for remanufacture in Beijing. And we've had a lot of work with them, some joint projects and efforts to raise awareness about remanufacture. And Dr. Yan Wang at Brighton is our key link there. But also the University of Birmingham, who are hosting a big workshop on autonomous remanufacture at the end of this month. The SMMT, their Reman committee. So from automotive, we also have the furniture sector, ICT, and circular computing in particular have been very, very strong in their engagement and work with us. HSSMI, who also have a base up in Glasgow now, but we usually get their experts from London involved in our committee, just because they're a bit nearer. But in these days of the web, that doesn't really matter anymore. And individual capacity product designers. So from across all sorts of different sectors. Furniture is one that we've started to get involved with, but medical devices as well. So this is part 220, design for manufacture, assembly, disassembly, and end-of-life processing, the process of remanufacture. Just a little look at its scope. So it specifies requirements for the process of remanufacture and the steps required to change a used product into and as a new product. So with at least equivalent performance and warranty of a comparable new replacement product. So we go through all of the steps the company would need to take. Quite a high level document. So as I said, it can be used across the board, any sector. It's not sector specific in its intent or remit. And hopefully a good first step into the standards for remanufacture. So what's the future for remanufacturing standards? We've got one. So with our talks and our engagement with industry, with academia, there seems to be a desire for international standards in remanufacturing. And BSI has a Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, as it's now known, funded work with China. And we have a joint working group of UK and Chinese committee experts who get together on Zoom every couple of months. And we're looking at what we could do in this space. Is this something that might lead to some international standards for remanufacturing? So BSI and the Chinese standards body, SAC, have got a close working relationship, and we're working with them as well as the various industries in each country to look into whether we could submit proposals to ISO, so the international standards body. And the FCDO project is more general than just the standards. Obviously, our committee and our committee experts are involved in the standards development side, but it's a broader project looking at improving the business environment in China, sustainable inclusive development, and also as a secondary benefit, enhancing trade and investment flows. So that's just a little overview of the project itself and its aims. And we're looking at the international standards strand. So one of the 5 main focus areas of this work. And again, there are some general aspects to the project, including improving the adoption and use of international standards, so ISO or IEC standards in China, improving the quality of proposals submitted, so reviewing the documents and helping to shape them and helping to make them more accessible to an international audience, and also understanding the impact of international standards in China. So China would be a relatively new member to the international standards world. So working with BSI, we're sort of seeing where we can go in terms of potential for international standard. Okay, so in terms of our committee, that's pretty much all I was going to give you in terms of information. I've just listed here a few other related standards around remanufacturing. Obviously, remanufacturing isn't new. It's been around for a long, long time, and it was really interesting to hear Winnie's talk on Monday, setting out the history of, you know, where remanufacturing has been, and in different countries, and in, you know, since a long, long time. So in the standards world, individual kind of sector specific areas have produced some standards, and so you see petroleum and natural gas dating back to 2000, and the automotive sector in the UK, BSI 257, has had a code of practice on the remanufacture of spark and compression ignition engines. So quite specific standards for very sort of individual items. Again, another one from the petroleum and natural gas industry area, earth moving machinery as well. And then PAS 3100 is a document created in the UK, and that's a process control system. Again, another automotive document. And finally, I've added, there's been a lot of work in Europe, mainly around the Energy Using Products Directive, and that's one standard that came out very recently, EN 45552. So I think this is the last technical slide that I have. Just to let you know, the work that we're doing doesn't go on its own. In a sense, there's a lot more around it and related to it. So BSI has a circular economy committee. We have our own circular economy standard, BS 8001, and interestingly, ISO has now created a new international committee for the circular economy. So interesting in terms of what that could mean for remanufacture. SCP-15 looks after that energy-related products, energy-using products, and the Eco-Design Directive, the standard that I mentioned before. And in the electrotechnical area, as I mentioned right at the start, the standards world tends to be split into electrotechnical and non-electrotechnical. So for every non-electrotechnical committee, so that would be us, TPR17, you have an electrotechnical equivalent, so that would be GEL 111. And we're always looking out for new members. Anyone can get involved if you have an interest in shaping standards, and particularly in remanufacture, which is what we're talking about today. Just let us know, please get involved. And that's thank you from me. So hopefully I haven't gone on for too long, and if there are any questions, both I and hopefully Brian, if it's anything too technical, we'll be able to help.
Thank you, Sarah. That was very good. Just a reminder to the participants, if they drop their questions into the Q&A box, I'll be able to ask them. But being a chair, I'm going to take advantage now to ask a few questions myself. See, even I picked up some things on there. So in terms of remanufacturing, I'm quite interested to see if BSI are undertaking programs in trying to create a form of trademark for remanufacturers to showcase potentially what the actual environmental impact is from their product, and to actually inform consumers of potentially what they might be encouraging or saving on carbon capture, etc., by buying that type of product more in the public space than the private sector.
So it's something we're always asked about, because I know remanufacturers are really keen to move into this space where you would have a quality mark. So BSI's quality mark is the kite mark. We just have a little bit of a separation between the work we do, which is to develop the standard, and then a certification scheme or a kite mark scheme can be based around standard. So slightly separate part of the BSI group, but yeah, we hear a lot about this, and I think it's something that a lot of people would like to move into. We've had some examples where companies have used what they call a bolt-on audit. So it's always going to involve certification and auditing, and generally if you have ISO 9001 registration, then some companies have worked with BSI and others. Obviously there are lots of other certification bodies out there, to add on a 8887 Part 220 audit to sort of say, well, we're ISO 9001 certified, that covers all of our general management requirements, but we also are now certified to 8887 Part 220. So it's sort of a first step, and that's what we've heard of so far. So it's something for more the certification world to work on, but I think the way it's based on industry demand. So I think there is, that's definitely growing.
Good, thanks, Sarah. Another one I had that was quite interesting, I'm giving parties a chance to write questions, is the business potential that you mentioned about the standard and that framework. I can understand conventionally it was probably written for the linear industry, develop your business on that linear model. Has that since been kind of revisited for the circular economy part, or will that be a part of the ISO 8887, the BSI standard 8887, to actually embody that, what is best practice for circular economy business models and circular economy practice organisations?
So BSI has made a first step into circular economy with the BS 8001. So that not my committee or Brian's committee that look after that one, but there's lots of work to do on circular economy, and there is now an international committee. So the UK, there are UK experts attending those meetings and trying to shape an international work program. It's not just one standard. They're looking at lots of different approaches in the circular economy. So it's new, as in it was set up last year in ISO, but there's a lot of work to do there, and I think there's a lot of scope for some really good standards to come out of that. Yeah. And then the way that would work, they would be adopted in the UK as a British standard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. I'll ask another as none have appeared yet. So I'm aware of yourself, Sarah, and Brian, both your work, having attended one or two of your events down in London, and been a participant in some. I'm actually quite interested in understanding net zero on the horizon, industry looking to work towards net zero, etc. And this could potentially be a playing field where there's no competitive edge or IP associated, because everyone has to step towards a sustainable future. In your own views, going through trying to create standards for the furniture industry to another sector, what do you think could potentially enable that mechanism within industries? Is it kind of a joint approach from maybe some of the operators and OEMs to set out an agenda and try to set challenges, I suppose, for UK clusters to be built around to address those challenges, and then bring BSI to the table on that basis? Or what do you think the recipe of success is for that from a BSI perspective, I suppose?
I think it's always got to be a joint approach, and we'll work with whoever we need to. I know we've had a lot of talks with various government departments. Obviously, DEFRA are very interested in trying to encourage more in terms of remanufacture, but also the move to net zero, and BASE as well. So BASE we've often worked with. I guess we're happy to work in whatever way people feel. From my point of view, from the standards point of view, whatever helps. But I know from a government perspective, we often hear, people would like more incentives. They would like maybe more of a push, so that that remanufacturing in particular, but other circular economy related work and processes can take off, can get bigger. So for me, it's an open question, and it's more, we'll try and do whatever we need. I don't know, does Brian have anything that he'd
Another dimension is that we've been, or KTN's been working and using us for publishing information as well in this area, and has recently held a series of very good seminars which were well attended, and we were part of that as well.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Well, there's no other questions, so all I have is, actually, there's one. How does the BSI standard compare? Sorry, I'll open up the full detail. Compared to the American National Standards Institute Standard RIC 001.1 2016 that relates to remanufacturing?
So I don't know an awful lot about that standard, in that in the standards world, we don't tend to share much across standards bodies. Other than if you're working internationally where you're all working together. I know they have a big program of work, and obviously the US would be one of, if not the leading standards maker in this area. So I know that they've been very busy. We have done some research as part of our work with China to establish what other standards already exist. I don't know. I know, as I say, they're definitely one of the big leaders in this field. I haven't had a chance to look at it myself, but yeah, they're doing a lot of great work.
We do have very good contacts through the ISO work with many of the American standards people, and we keep up on those things. But I don't think there's anything there that particularly changes any of the standards we published so far. But standards are always coming out. There's one coming out of ISO at the moment, which is affecting our terms and definitions. and that's an area that we want to pursue. So there are lots of contacts, and there's, as Sarah showed in her slide, there's tons and tons of experts, and they have contacts with other experts.
And just out of interest, on the basis of that, Brian, I know various sectors are beginning to look towards decommissioning. So we see PEL 88 that's come to the market for the wind energy sector on asset life extension and decommissioning with a view of hopefully repurposing and recovering. Are those types of programs on kind of BSI's radar in a way to either prepare the technical committees or see how you can help to influence or share what has worked with existing kind of standards previously?
I mean, I think, as I said, we're always looking to work with whoever we need to work with. I know that there's a lot of work going on up in Scotland and with lots of different sectors that we haven't yet engaged with much at all. So I guess to sort of answer that, we'd be happy to work with whoever and really put us into, you know, if you think we can, it would help for us to talk to others. Absolutely, we'll do that. I think we've grown from our one standard to branching out into potentially looking at sector specific approaches, because all of the industries have their own, you know, different needs in terms of the standards. But yeah, we'd be happy to explore any options with work that's already ongoing or others who are, you know, very well down the line or just starting off. But we'd be happy to talk to any of them. Yeah.
Can I underline that point in that neither Sarah nor I are experts in remanufacturing per se. And what we do try and put together is a group of experts. And we have about 50 on our committee. They don't come to every meeting because they obviously pick and choose for their areas of expertise. But if the areas that you mentioned, Paul, are significant to the remanufacturing community, then please would you encourage anybody to join our committee who can perhaps direct those things. The strength of BSI is that it is industrially driven, and we can't in our little think tanks invent things. We can respond to experts who join us, and if folk have particular ideas and thoughts for new standards, as you mentioned with kind of tax things, then that's something that somebody could kind of be a champion on and join the committee.
Brilliant, brilliant. No, thank you for flagging that, Brian. That's an important takeaway. Okay, well, I guess all that's left is for me to close this session. Once again, thank you very much, Sarah and Brian. That was a brilliant presentation just to help update us in terms of leading standards for remanufacturing. And we hope parties will join us in future SERA events. Please check out our webpage on our events page, and also please look at our new webpage that was launched the other week for more information in terms of SERS activities and service offerings that we have online. Once again, thank you and good day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Bye now.